All right, we're back at it. We took a little break. You had a busy schedule.
Yep.
Had some things that you needed to get to, but new day, new energy, new water, new shades.
Same shirt though.
Same
Continuity
shirt.
is important.
You was nice with it. I was like, nah, bro, we not even gonna play that. But yeah, excited that we have some more time to kind of like dive into some of the specifics, some of the particulars. We kind of left off yesterday on a note for folks that are interested in doing what you were able to do in the e-com space now, right? You started out 2017, time of recording, early 2024. So you kind of spoke to the power of like personal brand.
Yeah.
And building a product or building a business that's kind of centered on that and being able to leverage that. I'm curious to know, okay, so there's a lot of folks in, I'll say the online entrepreneurship space, not even necessarily e-commerce, that are selling various different programs, various different products, and are starting to get kind of like criticized and called out because they're doing all of that while what they really primarily are investing in is their personal brand, right? And so people are seeing that as kind of like a misdirection. It's like, well, you're telling me I should start an agency and teach me how to do it, but you're kind of building out your personal brand. So where would you see, because you were able to do what you were able to do without having a personal brand. And I think that that's also kind of like a dream and a lure for a lot of people is like, make my bag. No one needs to even really know about it. What's different about now? Why is that more of a prerequisite? How does that make that easier now?
Honestly, man, the only reason I would say that I brought up the personal brand is because I think it's extremely hard to get an e-com product to become successful if you don't have direct experience already in the space. So one of the reasons I said have a personal brand is because when you have a personal brand, you sort of have this cheat code. You have, let's say you have 10,000 followers. You have maybe a few hundred people in that following that will pretty much buy whatever you have to offer as long as it's in line with the thing that you're, making product videos about. Like I have a friend who he's in like the truck space. He's a YouTuber, Instagrammer. He has a full-time gig. He's doing really well, but on the side, he makes content. That's his personal brand. Well, he just did a merch line. On his first day, he had several thousands of dollars in revenue. Had he just done that without having that brand, he wouldn't have the same conversions. He wouldn't have the same sales. He would have to run traffic. Most likely he would mess it up. Most likely he wouldn't make any money per shirt. But he essentially has this network of people that are willing to essentially buy whatever he's willing to offer. If he were to expand that business into a merchandise brand, it could probably be pretty viable. If he wanted to maybe white label aftermarket like decals or tires or accessories for people who own trucks, I think it would be viable. But if you don't have that and you try to just make a Shopify store, maybe find a supplier on AliExpress or wherever, even domestic, you're going to run into a lot of issues because there are already huge names in the space, AKA brands, that have all the customers. They have the trust. Like, think of it logically like this, like social proof is everything. So maybe let me just give an example everybody relates to. When you go to order a commodity item on Amazon, let's say you want to order yourself a backpack or a bag for your laptop, and you want to go on Amazon, what are you first going to do? You're going to search the product, and the first few ones that come up are most likely are going to be the one that you buy from. You're also going to look at the reviews. You're going to look at how many thousands of reviews, positive and negative, that this product has, and then you're going to outweigh the prices and the pros and cons. Most likely you're going to pick something that is within your budget and has enough social proof already. You trust it, right? When you have a brand, you've already beaten the social proof part, which is the most important. And then it just comes out to, is this the right product for that audience? So if you don't have any of that, if you try to start selling a product on Amazon, which I did back, as I mentioned, you'll realize right away, even if it's, the niche doesn't have enough competition, but it has a lot of search, volume or whatnot, you're going to run into a lot of trouble selling the first maybe 10 even units if you're lucky, because you don't have the social proof. People don't trust that this is going to be the thing that you claim it to be. They want others to have vetted it already.
Right.
So it's really hard to get started in e-commerce. And I actually think a lot of people start in e-commerce not because they like e-commerce, because they want financial freedom and financial stability in their lives. They want to make more money. They want to create something, because I think most humans are way more creative than they give themselves credit for.
Agreed.
But they fall in the concept of e-commerce because it's this sexy thing where, you make money from wherever you want, allegedly. You work from your laptop, allegedly. You work 2 hours a day. I don't know when that was supposed to happen, but it never happened for me. So I think it's actually people want to make a certain amount of income and have a sense of like purpose and feeling, which is kind of what we talked about at the beginning, then actually be e-com store owners. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So they just associate those two as almost being one and the same, but they don't recognize that in the pursuit of one, they're signing up for the other, and it looks different.
It's way cooler to be an e-com store owner than like a well-paid blue-collar tradesperson.
Yeah.
Even if you're making the same amount of money, it's way cooler to be the e-com guy, because in your head you think, well, I could run this from the Bahamas. You can't. You can't. Not efficiently. Not at a certain point, the laptop lifestyle isn't sustainable to run an actual healthy business. And that's what people forget. E-commerce is not a job. It is a business. And most people aren't bred to be business people. So that's why I always say, like, if you want to actually succeed in e-commerce, like as the tool, and remember, e-commerce, I actually want to backtrack. E-commerce isn't a business. It's a business model. So e-commerce can be anything, really. It's just this grand
umbrella term.
It doesn't mean anything. It just means selling stuff online. I think if you want to sell products online and do it successfully, it's got to be personalized in a way. And the best way to do that is if you already have a personal brand. If you don't want to do a personal brand, but you do want to get into e-commerce one day, I think the best thing you can do is what I did, is get a job at a place that specializes in e-commerce, depending on what element of e-commerce you want to focus on, whether it's the marketing side, the actual product and distribution side, the web development side, whatever it is that interests you the most, go beg somebody who's rushing it in that space for a job. Stick around for a few months, see what you learn out of it. I think people want to skip steps and get to Dubai. But they forget there's so many hurdles that you have to overcome to make it. And most likely you don't even want to overcome those hurdles. You actually want something.
Yeah.
I think that's what people forget.
So I have this conversation with a lot of people when we're talking about personal brand. That's a question that surprisingly comes up in conversation a lot, is like, should I build the brand of this business, or should I like lean into my personal thing? And I think for a lot of product-based businesses, there's this idea that if I'm building to sell and it's built off of my personal brand, that's going to be problematic. So
why?
Because I think people have this association, or they have this thought that if you have this association between yourself as the person that this brand is built on and the product, you will either tap out your market at some point, or you'll get tapped out because you're doing all of the wrong things. So like you almost can't focus on the business because you're so focused on being like this internet personality. And I love that you asked why, because like I know that you are obviously right now, like you're investing into developing your personal brand, but you've also sold a business. So I'm curious to know, like, what context can you give about your experience in selling a business, and like why do you ask why? Right? Because I think for a lot of people, it's like a no-brainer. It's like, oh, well, you can only grow so big if you're a personal brand.
Papa John's is a billionaire. And he does pizza, or did, or whatever. I think some shit happened with it. He's done. But before whatever he did, he was a billionaire. He sold pizza. If he wants to do anything, he's Papa John, right? If he wanted to start a Papa John hoodie brand, he's Papa John. But like, you'd be like, wait, where Papa John, the pizza? That's lit.
Yeah.
I want it. Because he's just grown it so much.
Yeah.
Who owns Chick-fil-A? I don't know. But Chick-fil-A is great too. So it's not like which one is better. Chick-fil-A has its own brand, right? It has its own following. It has its own sort of ethos, but there isn't like a face to it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas that other example did. There was an actual person.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you're limiting yourself by attaching yourself to a successful company because the goal is to be successful.
Right.
So if you've attached yourself to one thing that was successful, how is that limiting you?
Yeah.
That's actually making you vetted for future ventures that you wish to go into.
Yeah.
Right.
I think for a lot of folks also
I think people have a commitment issue. I think overall, everybody these days, our age and younger, have a commitment issue. And I think it's holistic in everything. They don't want to, even if they can buy something, they would rather rent because they want the freedom of renting. Even though there are really good people to get into long-term monogamous relationships with, they'd rather be in these like situationships or rotations or whatever you want to call them.
Wow, not the rotation.
And I think the same thing falls in line is like people don't want to commit to anything because for some reason they think like then it like settles you into a box. But if you don't commit to anything, then you are nothing.
Yeah. Like
literally if you spread yourself so thin and you try to keep every option open, you will never go through any door, which means you'll never have progress. By virtue of pursuing something, you have to essentially close the door on other things. Like I wanted to be a medical doctor, a surgeon for the longest time. During the time that I was applying to medical school to get in, I was locked in on that. I had many other opportunities that I could have done, but I didn't have the time because I had to study. I never got into medical school. Once I started doing pretty well in business, and I mean like making enough to pay my rent, I was still kind of like up in the air. Am I doing well enough? Is this going to work and whatnot? And essentially it wasn't until I closed that door forever in my head of medicine, of that pursuit of that career, that I locked in to business and actually saw like exponential growth in the company. Because mentally, if you're not committed to something, you're not going to put in, you may, even if you work all the time towards it, your output isn't the same as when it's like your only option because you have created that. But people forget that just because you put yourself in a limited option in like a limited space on purpose, they think that's forever, but that's temporary. But you need that in order to get to the point where then you can do whatever you want. That makes sense.
Yeah, you have to go through that season.
Yeah,
to even like
people want to skip everything, and they're afraid of committing to stuff because they hate being wrong.
Yeah,
you have to fail. Well, you don't have to, but you will inevitably fail, and hopefully learn, and then you have to pivot, and that's just a consistent thing. But I think overthinking and anxiety and comparing, our current condition to the like the demo reel of another individual on either social media or TV is messing up our brain and saying like, man, like this person's got it. Like they just Midas touch and nothing but net. Like everything they touch is gold. That's what you see because that's what they want you to see. And they've probably messed up a million times before they got to that point.
And probably don't talk about it.
And they only do like one or two things. That's the other thing people forget about super successful people.
Yeah. I heard there's a quote that I really like. I don't remember where it's from, but it's essentially like, I can have anything and everything I want. I just can't have it all at once.
Yeah.
So it's like you have your list of 10, 20 million potentially ideas, and all of them are feasible and can happen. But if you tried working at all,
it's also like you can do almost anything, but you can't do everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There's a order of focus and urgency and prioritization that has to come with that. So for the person that is not in that demo, for the person that is willing to stay committed, stay consistent, especially in like the e-com space, I think if you're looking down the line on a longer term time horizon, the mission is to sell, right? Which you've done. I want to know a bit about your sale or your exit, details about that, ranges, and what are some of the things that you think are required or someone should be keeping in mind as they're building if they are interested in an eventual exit?
Yeah, sure. So you got to always, anytime you're doing anything, you have to view it from the point of view, the perspective of the customer. So when you're building a business, your entire business shouldn't be about what you think is right. It's what the customer needs or wants. And then you just tailor everything to that audience.
Mm.
And it, by design of doing that, you actually make it kind of off-putting by the people that aren't your customers.
Mm-hmm.
Like it'll be confusing or it won't make sense. And that's perfect, right? Like this Liquid Death, it's water in a can. It looks like, I don't know, Monster energy drink. I like it because of the designs, but it's super expensive. It's ridiculous. Why do I buy it? I think it's cool. You can buy sparkling water or just like regular bottled water for like a quarter of the price, but I'll buy it. Another person might look at that at the gas station at 7-Eleven and be like, come on, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Why? Well, you're not going to buy it anyways.
Yeah.
We're going to lean into the people that are going to buy it.
Yeah. And you have to alienate everyone else.
Exactly. So when you're going to sell your company, you also have to understand who your customer is going to be. And that is dependent on how big your business is. If you're a smaller business, you could be acquired by one of your competitors. If you get a little bit bigger, where you're in the 8-figure range, your competitors probably, it's not viable for them to buy you unless they are also owned by a massive conglomerate, but you're usually going to be bought by some sort of firm, some sort of fund, and then they can do with it whatever they will.
Mm-hmm.
So in our case, that's what happened. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that your business has a few things going for it to become really valuable. In our case, we made sure we had locked in systems. So like your, it's not really intellectual property, but it's like your, I don't know, I'll call it like systems property. Like how is it that I can essentially make sure that the people are working in your business right now? If I need to fire them or if I need to move people around, I still have a viable business. It's not all.
There's like redundancy there. So you're talking like SOPs, like process documentation.
Processes, documentations. What is everyone's role? KPIs, all that fun, sexy stuff that all of you that want to live in the Bahamas and work 2 hours a day would love to do for 26 hours a day, but won't, is the stuff you need to have not just a business to sell, but for your e-com business to be like profitable and viable. Because if nobody knows what they're doing, then it's just a bunch of headless chickens running around, right? So you want that. You want systems. That's what the buyer is looking for. The other thing that they're looking for that you would like is some sort of patent or intellectual property or exclusivity of some kind. So we had exclusivity with our distributors.
You had an exclusive agreement with them?
Yes.
Got you.
With a few of our products. So that's made us valuable. And then anything else would be like brand authority. How big are you? How much of the competition do you own, like the market? What projections do they have for growth in the future? These are all things that the purchaser is looking for, right? In our case, we weren't that big in like brand authority, but one thing that we had was that we were affiliated with a lot of affiliates in the space, like influencers. So what I did was I essentially made it impossible for any of our competitors to lock in with any affiliates. And the way that I did that is and by affiliates, I mean blog owners, YouTubers, a few people on Instagram, micro influencers, nobody huge, but people that had a big enough audience that converted. What we did was we got them to sign exclusivity contracts, which in the contracts clearly stated that for a certain period of time, as per this contract, they could not sell their own stuff that competed with us, and they could not market for any of the competitors in the space selling that particular product, and they signed it. So that made it so the people that ranked highest on YouTube for our products, whether it was pros and cons about our product or questions or where can I buy it or what should I look out for, etc. Our influencers were the top ranked on YouTube. And a few of them were pretty high up on Google, the blog owners. And that allowed us to essentially have this protected bubble of media and brand authority.
Yeah.
Because think of it this way. If you were to search for, let's say you want to buy a really good sleeping bag. I like hiking. I'm from the Vancouver side of Canada. We have huge mountains. And you're going to plan a trip with your boys and you're going to be really high up. It's going to be cold at night. Your regular, glamping sleeping bag isn't going to work for you. You need to get one that is light and also keeps you warm enough. Now, I could go on the websites and read their reviews, but I don't believe any of that. I want the people who've actually user tested this, which is like other enthusiasts who have authority in this space, to review it for me. What am I going to do? I'm probably going to go on YouTube.
Maybe TikTok.
Probably going to go on Google because I'm old, apparently. And I'm probably going to only look at the first 2 results on YouTube and Google. Well, that's what we did. We looked at who were the top ranking first 3 results on Google and YouTube, which were the 2 biggest search
engines.
Search engines, yeah. Thank you, on the internet. And we locked in on those guys. So majority of the curious top funnel traffic, they'll watch the first video. Hey guys, if you're interested in this, link in the bio, boom, they click on the link, they come to our website, they leave. They maybe go read a blog article on Google, click the link, come to ours. Oh, wow, these guys must be huge. We did that when we were tiny.
Wow.
But that relationship with those affiliates is what helped us propel forward. Not have to spend so much money on paid ads when we didn't have that trust at the beginning.
Right.
Because now before I sold it, we had so many reviews and, there were Reddit forums about our products that people were like, hey, are these guys legit? Time. And then there'd be actual people that bought like, yep, they're great, man. Or the shipping was a little slow, but they paid me back on express shipping. So I think they're legit, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you really want to build that, again, brand, personal brand, social proof to really beef up that this business, if the guys who want to buy it from me, it's going to be a tremendous amount of effort for them to just create what we create. It's actually more worth their time and money to just buy us out.
Right. Wow.
And that's what happened. And we sold it at its peak. The peak month that I owned it, it did $3,083,000 in revenue in that month.
Wow.
The last month that I owned it. And it was on track for that year before I sold it to do conservatively, if we had not grown at all, 36 million.
Wow.
But we were projecting around 40.
Man, I love that play that you ran with the affiliates. And I think I'm curious. I have 2 curiosities there. The first, how long were those agreements that you signed with the affiliates?
2 years.
2 years. And when you started reaching out to these folks,
not 2 years. It was a year. It was 1 year.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, 1 year.
And you'd kind of like renew with them.
Yeah.
Like they would just renew it.
And it was a great relationship because they would make a video for us, or maybe they would do a post, and we had itemized things of like, okay, like I'll pay you a flat fee for the video. We use share sales, so it'll track like purchases, and we'll give you a percentage on revenue generated based off of stuff that comes through your link or another person. Hey, higher flat fee, no affiliate commissions. Some would just be affiliate commissions, et cetera. It just depended on what made sense for each affiliate. I'm
curious, and obviously this would be like a range or a guess in your recollection, but let's say that you reached out to 10 individuals that were within the top ranking on Google or on YouTube for your product. How many of them did you find already had an agreement like that in place or had already been approached? So a few of them were working with other companies already, but they just weren't selling the products that we were selling. We were a hyper niche product in a really big industry. So we never said, hey, you can't do other sponsored videos. We just said, don't do anything that is the products that we sell. And it was very clear in the agreement, and they were cool about it. So they already had some sponsors. That makes a lot of sense.
That sold different products.
Which is also probably like a green flag for you.
Green flag, exactly. They already are generating revenue for another business.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Okay. When and I know just from the conversations that we were having even before we jumped on camera, like you've expressed this, and actually you mentioned this earlier on when we were speaking, that like sometimes you're almost like still shocked by how big you were able to grow and like where that story took you. I'm curious to know, were you building, I'm assuming not based on that, but like, were you building with the intention of having like this big exit at some point?
Dude, you'll laugh at this. So I started this because I wanted to, like everybody probably watching, I wanted to get to a point where I could make enough money to have some freedom. My goal in my head was with this business, I think I can probably get it to whatever the revenue, it doesn't matter, where I can pay myself 10K a month. Because that number just seems to resonate with everybody.
It does.
It's like all over the internet now,
Yeah.
but this was back in like 2021. I was like 10K a month. That's what I want. And then word for word, I said, once I make 10K a month, I'm going to use that money and start a real business.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
I didn't even view it as a real business. It wasn't until I spoke with one of my mentors who I met by luck, basically, Matthew Stafford, who looked at it and he's like, bro, you're sitting on a gold mine. You don't even know.
Wow.
And he was the one who really helped me pivot. And it just shows you the value of having the right people in your life and the right mentors who have made the mistakes that they want you to avoid. They are the ones who are able to pivot you in the right direction. And as long as you're a humble and good student and you follow what you believe they're saying is correct, you can propel yourself forward.
Mm-hmm.
So you really sometimes need a coach in your life of some kind.
Another thing that you spoke on that I think a lot of people will resonate with is these conversations that you would have with yourself, almost asking yourself, like, in a particular moment or a particular season, like, why am I doing things that are out of alignment with what I'm reaching for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or like, why am I not doing the things that I know would support that? I'm imagining this conversation that you have with your mentor where like you're kind of building towards a bubble the size of a pinhead, and he opens up your vision to the possibility of the entire ocean. Was there like an intimidation factor to having this newly adjusted idea of what's possible here? Did you just get excited and like lean into it? Tell me a bit about like the emotions around when you had that realization and what the following season of taking advantage of that looks like for you.
It's a really good question. Was I intimidated by it or was I excited?
Or both, you know?
No, it's a really, really good question because it's the funny thing about that is that the answer is yes, both, neither, and it depended on the day. Because anybody who runs a company or anybody who is trying to run one will know is like it is a day-to-day thing. Some days you feel like you're king of the world, and some days you're like, I am nothing, because you just take so many L's. But to answer your question, man, what it did was I think inspired me to try to change the actual visual of what I wanted out of this one business to be. And when you sort of change, you make moves and you have certain expectations that are now different. Like if you just wanted to get to a point of 10,000 a month profit for yourself, dude, that's solid. Like you could live pretty good on that. But then you move different. You invest different into your company. You might stop investing in it. You might stop growing it and you maintain it. But then if you're like, what if we did 100K a month in profit? What if we did 500K a month in profit? Is that even possible? In most cases, it's not, but it's like, what if we could? What moves do we have to make? What things do we have to do? What gross margins do we need for that net margin to occur? What return on ad spend do we need? And is that viable or is it not? You start to then open the possibilities of taking those actions. And I don't think until you see it as a possibility, do you even take the first step to growth.
Because your mind's not there.
Because your mind's not there, yeah. Like, I didn't think I was going to sell my company for a while until it started to make sense.
When you say you didn't think you were going to sell your company, you mean like you had actively...
I was like, why would anybody buy a company from me? I'm just some dude. I grew it on a laptop. Like, why would some dude wearing an $8,000 suit in a fund look at me seriously, and why would he pay money from his people, that his investors, to buy some fucking domain that I made? Like, that's the way I viewed it. And it wasn't until it was like, like there's reasons that somebody would want to do this, that you that you can open up the possibility of doing so.
Mm-hmm.
And for a while, I think my identity also lied within what I did in the business. And as the business grew, and this is sort of what is hard, is you need to stop being the bottleneck of the company, and you need to delegate to people that you hire. And then it's funny because you find yourself without a thing to do because you realize you were just doing busy work the whole time.
Wow.
And then you wake up and you're like, I don't need to log into my computer today, but I don't know what to do beyond that. And then you realize wow, I have all this free time. I can actually work on the business instead of keep myself busy answering emails I don't need to answer. Yeah. Somebody else is answering it better than I can. That's when you, I think, can dissociate, hopefully, your identity from your company. And maybe that's when you can take the first step to seeing, would somebody want to buy this? Yeah. Because you can't sell something that you believe is your, an extension of you.
Defines
you. It's too close to who you are. Tom Ford is never selling Tom Ford because it's him. It's his name, bro. Yeah. You know?
I almost feel like that kind of bridges back to the conversation that we're having around building a business off of personal brand. Because I know now you're really starting to move through the world more from an investment standpoint. And so to that question, I'm curious to know, despite or in the context of your perspective on personal brand supporting business and company growth, would you invest in a Tom Ford? You know what I'm saying? Would you invest in
It's funny you mentioned that, because actually one of my, I was telling my brother this, I was like, I want to buy a legacy company one day. Because I saw a news article of somebody bought, it was Sports Illustrated or something for basically nothing. And they had to fire everybody because they kind of messed up the way that they were running it. Dude, wouldn't it be cool to buy something that existed way before me and will exist way after? And it's just been part of the culture. It's what if you could buy I don't know, Patrick Bet-David bought into the Yankees. That's a cool thing to do.
Yeah. Or an F1 team or something.
Or an F1 team.
Yeah.
Would I buy in a Tom Ford? Man, those Tom Ford YouTube videos of the way that he's so suave and he's this is what you need to, and he just takes, he basically, it's Tom Ford dresses a random 28-year-old, but the dude is a model already and he's super handsome. They're just hey, just don't shave for a week and then just come in and be all haggard. And Tom comes in the thing about your eyebrows is, I would buy Tom Ford just so Tom Ford could just dress me one day. That would be the worst ROI in history, but I'll be
experience.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's a hard one because you're buying into, to your point, this thing that changes when this individual passes on.
It can, for sure. But to that same element is Christian Dior
Versace
still exists. Gucci still exists. Yeah. So there's a legacy that stays. But I get your point. I think maybe things will eventually change once that person leaves and exits, whether it's by passing away or just selling the company. But again, I don't know how else to say this, but if you become Tom Ford and you think you're boxed in, bro, your mind is off.
Yeah.
You're not going to accidentally, oh my God, I'm going to be Tom Ford. And then I'm the fashion guy, but I want to make Liquid Death. What am I going to do? Dude, Liquid Death and Tom Ford collab. Could you imagine?
That'd be crazy.
A white, what is it? Black tie,
That'd
decked out Liquid Death. Tom Ford comes out. He's this is the best. It can happen.
Yeah.
People, I think they want, and this goes back to what I said, is they fear commitment, but they also want to create mental barriers, because I think not only do they fear commitment, the work is hard.
Yeah.
They want to fantasize and revel and live vicariously through others and the idea of what if, but then the actual doing, it requires a major leap of faith that I, even myself, had to build myself to.
Yeah.
And it's too much for most people. think maybe that's why. I think maybe it's not just a fear of commitment. It's actually a fear of the unknown, fear
Yeah.
of failure. And it's just an excuse.
People seem to make a lot of those. It's like a defense mechanism, right?
Yeah.
Like, and you mentioned that you found yourself in that place a couple times. If you could go back and speak to yourself on the front end of that and those struggles, obviously that's something that evolves and like you develop and get better with every single day. But what's one thing that you would tell to your younger self to kind of support that part of the journey?
Mm. The thing about me was that even though I had those issues, like everybody, like the fear of taking that leap, I always jumped into it anyways. So when I was trying to get into medical school, a few of my pre-medical school, like science kids, students, when they found out, they actually laughed at me
Mm.
because I wasn't that guy, right? Like to them, it's like, oh, you're trying to, oh, no, as if. And you know what? They were right in a sense. I mean, I didn't get in, but on the other end, this will get me permanently banned from ever applying to medical schools. I got so good at the interview process because it's just a game. So these like short mini interviews, and I did them a few times and I kept ranking really high and still not getting in, that I was helping people prep for it. And all those people were getting in.
Oh, wow.
And it was like the biggest slap in the face. I'm like, bro, like my system works. Like they weren't cheating or anything. You just figure out like an algorithm almost to how to interview short form, like these like quick 5-minute interviews. But I still couldn't get myself in. And I'm like, okay, at least I tried. And that was a huge leap of faith. There were many failures. There were many points where I should have or could have given up, but I went through it to the very end. I never will ever regret that I tried it. But even if, let's say I never went down that path and still found myself this successful in business, I would probably still wonder, what if I had tried that other path on like the really bad days of entrepreneurship?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe even in a few years where like I don't have bad days, I'd be like, I wonder what life would have been like had I tried to be a medical doctor.
Yeah.
Maybe it would have been better. But I know I tried and I didn't make it. And so for me, it was always just like, okay, I'm scared. I'm going to do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. No, I'm scared to start that company. I'm going to do it anyway. I'm scared to talk to that girl. No, I'll talk to her anyway. Whatever.
And is that really just like because you future projected and we're like, I know I don't want to regret
No,
that I didn't?
yeah, I think so. I think I'm somebody whose biggest fear in life is to, I want to word this eloquently and accurately, but it's like to disappoint myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very, very honest with myself in a way that I don't even like project onto others. It's like, I don't want to disappoint myself. And I would rather feel the pain of screwing up than to disappoint myself in the end. That's my biggest fear.
Yeah. And I think that's a good fear to have and for folks to lean into if they have like a healthy relationship with it.
Yeah.
It could definitely be.
Yeah. That's the important part.
Yeah.
Healthy relationship for sure.
Could definitely be problematic.
Yeah, I'm working on that part.
Yeah. But I think that awareness too is like, I think a lot of people assume that negative emotions are negative and like positive emotions are positive.
Mm.
And I've always tried to keep this awareness and this perspective that like my mission is to have a healthy relationship with positive and negative emotions. So like that could be a negative emotion that has a positive impact.
Well, what makes a negative emotion negative?
Your own association of it, I would say.
But what does that even mean? Does it just feel bad in your body?
Yeah. It's something you wish you didn't feel.
So if something feels bad in your body, is it like your body? Is it something bad, or is it actually your spidey sense?
Right.
Telling you, hey, bro.
Right.
I got you.
But like that,
you gotta do something
you have to be able to
different.
see it that
It's
way.
like, you got to do something different.
Yeah. Because I don't think
that's all
most
it
people
is.
see it like that. I think most people see it as, and I'm, most people, but like, I think most people just see it as like, oh, they almost project it onto life. They're like, man, like life sucks. And like, I just have to like go through this season and like, it's unfair. And like, I just have to feel this way. But I think somebody like you, somebody like me can look at that and see it as a spidey sense and as a signal because we assume the degree of responsibility for our lives that we do. You know what I'm saying?
I can't remember when I heard this. I heard this somewhere, but I heard somewhere this awesome quote. It's not me. Once you accept that life is unfair, you can start to enjoy it.
Mm.
Because there's unfairness everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You can revel in it, or you can be like, all right, things are unfair. I'm going to try to do my best. I'm going to try to be a good person, whatever that means to you. But like, no matter, but then also realizing like, it's okay that things are unfair because that's just kind of how they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want it to be like nihilistic or anything, or to not push people to want change. There are things that can be changed, but no matter what, things are unfair.
Yeah. But I also think sometimes in the case of like an isolated life, like that's not necessarily totally to your disadvantage. You know, like I always like to move from the awareness that like we all have our unfair advantages.
Yeah.
So
and
like
disadvantages.
right?
Yeah.
So it's like I could look at you or somebody that came up in a family that had more money than I did and say like, oh, well, that's not fair. But there are things about me and my unique disposition and personality that are unfair to my benefit. You know, they are my unfair advantage.
Yeah. And it's being aware of that because the things in your life that you labeled as unfair, or the things in your life that you labeled as advantages, are just labels. But like what you do with them is what's important. So maybe it was unfair that you grew up poor, but then maybe it's actually now you have this unfair advantage against others that you grew up poor, because now you know how to spend your money right.
Mm-hmm.
Now when you do make some money, you don't go and blow it to, impress people, or you know the value of it, or you know that it can be scarce.
Mm-hmm.
So you make moves to not put yourself in a compromising position.
Yeah.
Or the other way around. Maybe you grew up in a very affluent family, and some people like to think, oh, you grew up in an affluent family, you're going to lose whatever money you inherited, you're going to lose it all. Or maybe you grew up in an affluent family who was really good at managing money, and you were taught how to manage your money properly, and that's your unfair advantage too. It's like both of those people had an unfair advantage. One of them maybe sucked more than the other, but like why are we wasting so much energy on who cares? Like just do your thing, like figure it out, like do your thing, use what you got, use, the things that you were missing to your advantage if you can, and like try your best.
Yeah.
But like, that's also not a fun thing to hear.
Right.
Right. Especially if you're down. Like that's not a fun thing to hear for most people.
Nor does it align with kind of like the cultural perspective for our generation.
Yeah. Really. I mean, social justice is a very big element of our culture.
Yeah.
For good and for bad. But there's no like benefit to you to create an identity of victimhood. Mm-hmm. But you can definitely be aware that things weren't as great as they could have been for you versus, your neighbor or whoever. But
those don't have to be mutually exclusive.
They don't have to be. Yeah. You can have an awareness and you can have an understanding. Again, you can be aware that life is unfair. You can make, efforts to make those changes if they bring fulfillment to you. But you won't really find happiness in life, in my opinion, until you just accept to the reality of the unfairness.
As it is.
I think so.
Yeah, I agree. Man.
You can just like relax after that.
Right. Right. It doesn't even feel like you're always in this constant like battle or got this like weight of the world on you, at least not in the same way.
You got other problems, man.
Yeah. Man, you're like the big brother. I said this to you yesterday. Like you're like the big brother I feel like a lot of people need.
I appreciate that.
So I'm really glad that, people are able to, and that you've decided to share so much of your story. I've always like that creates so much just respect from me, because it's like, bro, you could just go like fuck off into the sunset and like no one could ever hear from you again.
I've done that for a while.
It's beautiful. Like
kind of boring.
I'm sure. Like it makes sense.
Yeah.
But right now, like you're in a season of actively choosing to not just speak your story to like aggrandize yourself, but even in some of like our backdoor conversations, like I know your intention is really to speak to the people that are in the position that you were in when you started this journey and give them some of the areas of support and insight that you even got from your mentors that were in places that you are finding yourself in now and vice versa. I want to give some context to that a little bit. So I know over this next season, growing through like media and kind of personal brand is going to be a big area of focus to you. And we've spoken a bit about a vision that you have for how that culminates into deeper relationships with a couple people or kind of like a core audience. Would love to hear a bit more about your thoughts on that and how that might look.
I do want to say something. Okay, like coming out here, growing a personal brand, yeah, it has benefits. You meet cool people, you get cool connections, can do a lot for you. But like ultimately, my why for this is all I'm doing is speaking to the 18-year-old version of myself, because I didn't have somebody like me to tell me what I am saying right now. And that was the message that I was always searching for. There was something a little off with me growing up, and there was a thing I was searching for that I wasn't getting from people that were my elders. And I was getting other messages that weren't aligning with me. So I'm not out here to be like someone's guru or someone's whatever. I'm literally I'm picturing myself at 18, just graduated high school. And like, this is what I think. Listen to it if you want to. Maybe hear the perspective and then go do your own thing. Pick it apart where I contradict myself. Because I don't know, I'm figuring it out as I go as well. But that's my entire goal. That's my audience. It's just me at 18.
Yeah.
And wherever that takes me, whoever I get to speak with, whoever I get to, meet, great. That's it.
I love it, man. Well, whoever that person is that aligns with the position from a mental, emotional place that you were in when you were 18, I know that they're excited to see what that looks like, what potentially connecting with you in a greater way looks like, and drawing more insights from more of the stories that you share and, more of your moments of vulnerability like this. So on behalf of them, appreciate you. Looking forward to more. And yeah, you definitely you're not escaping, bro. We're gonna have this, we gonna continue this conversation
Sure,
a long
man.
way.
I love it. I had fun.
You come back through, don't think I won't come to Dubai. Don't think I won't go to Montreal. Like
Anytime.
we'll make it happen.
There.
Cool.
Be a good host.
Well, appreciate you. This will be one of many.
Sure.
So for everyone watching, definitely check out. There's, by the time this is out, and increasingly so, there will be a lot of other ways to kind of hear about your journey and some of the insights that you have there. And we'll keep it going.
Sure.
Cool, man.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. My guy. And you got a good handshake, bro.